In this video, we're going to be taking a look at properties. Now, the essential question that we are going to unlock is how can you use properties of operations to solve problems? Now, it is important, once again, that you remember that you have out your Go Math book, your math journal, and also your pencil. So I want you to turn to page 13 in your Go Math book. And at the top of page 13, there are properties of addition, first of all. So kind of show you what I'm even talking about when I say properties. Okay, so commutative property of addition: if the order of addends changes, the sum stays the same. In other words, if I do 12 plus 7, that's going to give me 19, or if I do 7 plus 12 will also give me 19. So commutative property of addition, no matter what the order is, the answer or the sum stays the same. The associative property of addition: if the grouping of addends changes, the sum will stay the same as well. So if I add 8 and 14 together first, giving me 22, and then I add it to 5, that's going to give me 27. If I add 5 and 18, it will give me 13, plus 14 will also give me 27. Now, identity property of addition: the sum of any number and 0 is that number. For example, 13 plus 0 equals 13. Okay, 8 plus 0 equals 8. The sum of any number and 0 is always that number. And moving to commutative property of multiplication, property of multiplication, commutative property of multiplication: if the order of factors changes, the product stays the same. In other words, if I multiply 4 times 9, that will give me 36. Or if I multiply 9 times 4, no matter what order, it will always give me 36. Now, associative property of multiplication: if the grouping of factors changes, the product will stay the same. In other words, if I have 11 times 3 times 6, and I want to multiply 3 and 6, giving me 18, then multiply that by 11, that's going to give me the same product as if I multiply 11 and 3, giving me 33, multiplying it by 6, giving me 198. Both of these will always equal the same. And finally, identity property of multiplication: the product of any number and 1 is that number. For example, 4 times 1 equals 4, 80 times 1 equals 80, and so on. So that gives you a brief explanation on the top of page 13 about these different properties of addition and multiplication. Now it says you can use the properties of operations to help you evaluate numerical expressions a little easier. In other words, some numbers add together very nicely, some are a little difficult. Okay, so it says the table shows the number of bones in several parts of the human body. What is the number of bones in the ribs, the skull, and the spine? Okay, now the first thing we want to do, it says use properties to find 24 plus 28 plus 26. Now, I may not just want to add all those numbers in order from left to right that way. So what I can do is I can kind of reorder them if I want. Now, what they're asking us to do, and you can write this on the bottom of page 13, it says use a commutative property. Okay, now remember, the commutative property: if the order of addends changes, the sum will stay the same. So what we can do, we have 24 plus 28 plus 26. Now that will also equal 28 plus 24 plus 26. Okay, and what we can do for that is we can add, for example, let's say we want to add the 28 and 24 together first of all, or if it shows basically no matter how we order everything that it's going to equal the same sum. Okay, now if I'm taking a look at the associative property, what the associative property means: if grouping the addends changes. This is one of my favorite ones, in that I can group addends together. In other words, 24 and 26, I know that equals 50. Okay, then that 50 can easily be added to 28, making it very easy. Now, 28 and 24 I have to carry, and I know I have to do that with 24 and 26, but 24 and 26, pretty easy. So the associative property, I can kind of group those numbers together, add them together. 50, it gives me, plus 28 now is going to give me 78. So based upon that, I know that there are now 78 bones in the ribs, the skull, and the spine. Okay, let's take a look at page 14 in our Go Math books, and it says multiplying a sum by a number is the same as multiplying each add-in by the number and then adding the products. You can see it right at the top. So it says 5 times 7 plus 9 will equal 5 times 7 plus 5 times 9. Okay, same thing there. Okay, so now it says the distributive property can also be used with multiplication and subtraction. For example, 2 times 10 minus 8 will also equal 2 times 10 minus 2 times 8. Okay, so let's take a look at the example 1. So we have 8 times 59 equals 8 times what number times 9. Okay, so what we need to do is use a multiple of 10 to write 59 as a sum. Okay, so we can do 50 times 9 that way. Okay, so what we can do, first of all, we can do 8 times 50 plus 8 times 9. This may be a little bit easier. It breaks it down a little bit easier for you. Okay, and also even shows you that when you're multiplying 8 times 59 that you are actually multiplying, you know, the 8 times the 9 and also the 8 times the 50. That 5 there is not just a 5, it actually represents 50. Okay, so 8 times 50, if I take 8, multiply it by 5, that gives me 40. Then I can tack on my 0, giving me 400. I know 8 and 9 gives me 72 for a grand total of 472. Might be a little bit easier way to multiply 8 times 59. Okay, another way we can do this is by using subtraction. Okay, so we can take 8 times 59, and what we can do is have that 8 there. Alright, so we're going to take that 59, and if we subtract 1 from a certain number, that would give us 59, which would be 60. Okay, then from here, we're going to take that 8, we're going to multiply it by 60. Okay, now then when we find that number, we're going to need to subtract it from here. So 8 times 1. Okay, and where do we get this from? If I'm multiplying 8 times 60, remember 60 is 1 greater than 59. If I'm doing that 8 times, I'm also going to need to subtract 8 from this product as well. Okay, so 8 times 60 is going to give me 480. I'm subtracting the 8 that I added on to my 60 there, giving me a total of 472. Okay, let's look at the example 2. It says 23 times what equals 23, and if we just have 23 times 1, okay, we know that that is the identity property of multiplication. So the product of any number and 1 is that number. So the property, I want you to write in your book, identity property of multiplication, and to spell that correctly, look on page 13 to get the proper spelling for that. Okay, let's move on to the next one. If you're not finished writing that out, you may need to pause the video. Okay, now for this, we have 47 times 15 equals 15 times also 47. Now for this, what we are doing is the commutative property of multiplication. And how do we know that? Because if the order of factors changes, the product stays the same. So once again, I know a lot of times when you're multiplying just 2 digits or 2 different numbers together, it's not a big deal. But if you have 3 digits that you're adding or multiplying, it can really be a lot easier if you change them a certain way. Some just add or multiply together pretty easily. So the property here is the commutative property of multiplication. Okay, now we're going to use properties to find 4 times 23 times 25. Okay, and what we can do, first of all, if we want to do the commutative property of multiplication, we can take 23 times 4 times 25. If we want to group it together, associative property of multiplication. Okay, we can do it that way, where we can take 4 and 25, put those two factors in parentheses. 4 times 25, pretty simple. It's going to give us 100. And then from 23 times 100, 23 and then 2 zeros at the end for 2,300. So you can see how it's a little bit easier when you use the different properties of multiplication. Now the next one, use properties to find the sum or product. Okay, so what we can do, we need to understand, maybe how these can add together a little bit easier. And what I can do, I know that 107 plus 13 plus 39 plus 0 will give me the best way to solve this problem if I want to use parentheses here. What I could even do is use the associative property of addition. Okay, and why did I do that? Because 107 and 13 I know is easy, and that it gives me 120. Then I can add 120 plus 39 equals 159. A lot easier that I can do 107 plus 0 plus 39 plus 13. Okay, so that 159 makes a little bit easier for me to figure out there. I'm sorry, 159 makes a little bit easier. Okay, the original problem here is 11 plus 19 plus 6. I want you to fill in the number here, okay, and then tell me what or write down what property you used. Okay, so pause the video now. Okay, you used the associative property of addition, in that the grouping of the add-ins stayed changed, but the sum will also stay the same no matter what. Okay, let's take a look at this one. 25 plus 14 equals what plus 25? Fill that blank in and then give me the property. So I want you to pause the video now. So you put 14 here. Okay, and this is the commutative property of addition. It can be a little tricky to say, and we know that because in the order of if the order of add-ins changes, the sum still stays the same. So 25 plus 14 gives me 39. 14 plus 25, also gives me 39. Okay, let's take a look at the test prep. I want you to complete this problem all by yourself, and when you figure it out, you can press play and I will have the answer for you. This problem is on page 16, number 17 on page 16. And like I said, when you press play, I will have the answer for you. So pause the video now. Okay, the answer is letter B. And taking a look at the essential question, how can you use properties of operations to solve problems? You can use the associative, commutative, identity, and distributive properties to group numbers that are easier to add or multiply. So this concludes the video on properties. If you have any questions about this concept, please come and see me.